what is a PTI program and how does it differ from deferred adjudication probation, deferred probation? So we've done a previous video on what a PTI is. Briefly, it is a diversion program. It diverts you out of the criminal justice system, and once you successfully complete the program, your case is dismissed and you're eligible for a full expunction. So what is deferred adjudication probation, and then how do these two programs, deferred probation and PTI, how do they differ? So deferred adjudication probation is a full probation. That means you are going in front of a judge, you're entering a plea of guilty, sometimes a plea of no contest if the prosecutor agrees. No contest meaning I'm not admitting I did it, I'm also not contesting the charge. In Latin, they call it nolo contendere. Some lawyers use that term. But essentially, you're entering a plea of guilty or no contest. The judge is finding that there's enough evidence to find you guilty, but they defer or hold off on that adjudication of guilt. That's why we call it deferred adjudication. They hold off on the finding of guilt, the conviction. So, most importantly, deferred probation is not a conviction for the purposes of Texas law. I say for the purposes of Texas law because there are some small but big exceptions. For immigration purposes, deferred probation, immigration courts consider it to be a conviction. So if you're not a U.S. citizen, deferred probation may or may not be a good idea, and you should absolutely talk to an immigration lawyer. So if you do deferred probation, you're entering that plea of guilt or no contest. The judge is finding that there's enough evidence to find you guilty, but they hold off, they defer, they put you on probation. Now, the day-to-day of probation is exactly the same as what we commonly refer to as regular or straight probation, what you can think of as conviction-based probation, because for all intents and purposes, they're basically the same, except a conviction-based probation in Texas starts with a conviction, and there's a maximum amount of time that you can be punished with if you violate the terms of your probation. So for a felony, up to 10 years on a straight, standard, or conviction-based probation. For deferred, because they're not finding you guilty, they're holding off on that. If you violate the terms and conditions of probation, you can be revoked. Now it's a conviction, but because they held off on finding you guilty, on convicting you, the full range of punishment is open to the court. So if it's like a first-degree felony, then you're looking at up to life in prison. So deferred probation can have some major downsides. The higher range of punishment, if it's a higher level case, is one of them. But it's not a conviction. If you successfully complete the probation, the deferred probation, you're never convicted, and your case is discharged and dismissed without it being a conviction. Now, I use the word discharged and dismissed. That's not the same as a regular full dismissal, okay? It is still on your record. It's still going to show up on your record that you completed deferred probation. Depending on how good the background search someone is running, they may see no finding of guilt, non-adjudication of guilt, they may see discharged, they may see dismissed. It's impossible to say because there's so many different record search companies to be able to say exactly what they'll see. But they will see this case if you do deferred and you take no other action. So I hear a lot of lawyers incorrectly tell people, and a lot of defendants incorrectly assume that if I complete deferred, it will be off my record. It won't. Now, when you complete deferred, you're eligible to have your record sealed, what in Texas we call a petition for non-disclosure of criminal record. So think of that, an expunction, which you get at the end of a PTI, is the complete removal of all records related to your case. They're taken out of the filing cabinet and shredded, they're gone. In a non-disclosure, they're sealed, so they're still there. The courts can see them, the law enforcement can see them. There's a whole list of public agencies that can see them, but they're sealed from the public. So if someone runs a background search for a new job, they're not going to see a sealed or non-disclosed case. Now, with deferred, I said there's some downsides. The other possible downsides is there's a whole list of cases that even if you get deferred, you can't have non-disclosed or sealed. Family violence being one of them, sex-related offenses being another. So before jumping into deferred probation, make sure you fully understand and your lawyer fully explains to you the upsides and downsides. But now you see the biggest difference between a PTI and deferred. First of all, a PTI does not involve an official plea of guilt. Deferred does. Second of all, a PTI does not involve an official probation. A deferred does. Third of all, if you violate or get revoked out of a PTI program, you're just back where you started. You're not convicted and going to prison. Whereas if you get revoked out of deferred, now you're convicted and you're probably headed to prison. And then finally, and this is the biggest one, if you complete a PTI, you're eligible immediately for an expunction of the records related to your case, full removal from your record. It doesn't happen automatically. You need to get a lawyer to do that for you. Whereas deferred, it's going to be on your record unless and until you get a non-disclosure, and then it's still there. It's just not visible by the public. And I said a PTI is immediately eligible, whereas deferred, depending on the type of case, there are waiting periods. Some misdemeanor, there's no waiting period. Some misdemeanor, it's 2 years. All felonies, it's 5 years after you complete the probation. So, a lot of differences between PTI and deferred, a lot to think about and go over with your lawyer. This stuff is not simple, and this is why you need a knowledgeable criminal defense attorney who knows their stuff and is willing and cares enough about you to go over all of this so you can make an educated decision about what's right for you.